Hello and welcome to episode 316 of the Total Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club. A huge thank you to our TSP Patreon community because we couldn't make the show each week without your loyal support. Coming up this week on the podcast, it's the official relegation after party. I mean, it's been coming since October, but today we were finally put out of our misery. And to quote the club, we confirmed our place in the championship for next season. Like it's some sort of achievement. Spurs have been poor this year, but we didn't cause them many problems. Going to review the latest defeat. And it's high-flying Aston Villa next at St Mary's on Saturday, so we'll preview the game for you. My name is Martin Starke, and joining me tonight, Steve Grant is the owner of Saints Web, and Glen is writer of the blog League One -10. So at the full-time whistle today, our fate was finally confirmed, relegated with 7 games to go. Steve, you've just got back from the game. What was the reaction at the full-time whistle? What was the atmosphere like?
Well, I must admit, I wasn't there for the full-time whistle. 82 minutes was when I lasted.
It's a fair crack.
And getting away from that ground, if you stay to the end, can be an absolute nightmare with 61,000 people all trying to get into 2 train stations. So, I just thought 10 minutes to go. It was, we barely laid a glove on them all afternoon, and it didn't look like it was likely to improve in that short period. Although, of course, I then go and miss 2 goals. But yeah, it was not good. For all that there were encouraging signs on Wednesday against Crystal Palace, it seemed as if basically we'd spent the 2.5 weeks without a game working on one system that basically required us to have a 6'7" target man playing up front, and with only a couple of days between the games leading into this one, and with Paul Onuachu clearly not fit enough to start, we decided that we were just going to retain the same system and lump the ball up to the 5'7" Cameron Archer with entirely predictable outcome. That was just infuriating because for kind of 2 games running, you kind of looked at the starting lineup and you thought, okay, I can see what he's doing. That kind of at least you've got square pegs in square holes. You've got fullbacks on the right sides. You got centre backs, and we went back to a back 4, which I think people have kind of wanted for the vast majority of the season. Actually, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because we've kind of lambasted Jack Stevens' performances when he's made them for most of the season, and yet on Wednesday he played pretty well, and yet somehow finds himself back on the bench, which felt a little bit harsh. Mm-hmm. But I guess if you want to get the extra body into midfield, given the absence of Flynn Downs, who of course put in a good performance on Wednesday, then yeah, I guess you kind of needed to sacrifice somebody somewhere. So yeah, in came Joe Aribo to not do an awful lot. I think it was him that had that shot that was saved relatively early on, but other than that, didn't really contribute a great deal. We just didn't look mobile at all in the centre of midfield with the changes, and we allowed James Maddison to basically have as much time and space as he liked in that first half. Him and Bergvall were probably had their easiest afternoons of the season, possibly barring the reverse game at St Mary's in December. So yeah, it was very, very frustrating that having put in a decent-ish performance on Wednesday, that we then go and serve up. Especially the first half. Second half we were a little bit more competent, but first half was just absolutely terrible. And we were lucky it was only 2-0. You had the interminable VAR check for an offside, which felt like it went on for about 20 minutes, but was apparently 3 minutes 20. But it looked, when they then put the graphic up, it looked like a relatively straightforward decision. So I don't understand how it took them that long. But then, having got that reprieve, we then, quite what the hell we were doing for the one that actually did become their second goal. where we've somehow let the ball's gone up in the air, and somehow 3 defenders have collectively let the ball bounce in front of them, to then give Brendan Johnson a relatively comfortable poke in from 7 or 8 yards out, and it was just disorganised. There was no tempo to it. Spurs weren't even great, and yet there we made them look like they were sort of really pushing the tempo and running at us and causing us problems. Whereas actually it was just because we were so static that even the slightest bit of movement suddenly opened up 20 yards of space. So yeah, it was not good. And I mean, frankly, I'm surprised there were as many left in the away end at the full-time whistle as there were, based on the sort of videos and pictures that I've seen.
Clapping the team off.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, each to their own. Everybody's entitled to kind of support the team and whatever in sort of in whatever way they like, sort of within reason. But yeah, I don't quite get my head around that. It's bizarre. But I mean, ultimately, there's kind of a sort of line there where, like, people have said these players don't deserve this support, and I mean, there's certainly an argument that rings pretty true based on a lot of these players' performances this season.
Well, let's just deal with the relegation to start with, Glenn. It feels to me a little bit different this time. Last time we kind of like were fighting for our lives to a certain extent, and we were in there to the end. This just feels really embarrassing, doesn't it? The earliest relegation in Premier League history, another record to add to the list. I just feel really embarrassed today.
I mean, I'm not sure we were fighting to the end. The first time around, I think it was pretty cut and dried from about Ruben Selles's 5th game or something like that. It was obviously going to be pretty ropey. I think we eventually went down with 3 games to go, was it? Or 2 games to go, when we lost at home to Palace. Yeah. The Nottingham Forest. Yeah, was it? Oh, Fulham, I can't remember. Obviously. Last time, Steve made a point last week or the week before that last time seemed a little, it seemed like it was preventable. Very much so. It shouldn't have happened, really, with the start to the season we had under Ralph and but this one has been set in stone for a long time. I think it highlights the difference in the quality of the other 17 teams from 2 years ago. I just think it's very different now. You go into this league expecting to pick up your points against the likes of Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton, Fulham, and they're all so much better than us now. It's shocking. And yeah, it's been absolutely abysmal from start to finish, really. People have kept their spirit, and people have, in the main, kept going to the games, especially the away following, which has been brilliant. It's remarkable how much that's or how well that's held up. But it's really been a disaster from start to finish. I've got through with being angry about the actual relegation. I mean, I had someone say to me today that was a big pressure game for Saints today. I'm like, no, it ain't.
No.
We've been down since October. I've accepted it. I've gone all the stages of grief and all that. I've gone through all that, and now I'm in the let's get it over with and be done with it. And
yeah, I think we're all in the same boat, aren't we?
Yeah, and as soon as let's get past Derby's record so we can stop talking about that. That's horrendous as well, to be even in that conversation. But no, I just want to get it over with, and all we can really do is same old stuff, probably the same as what I said 2 years ago, is learn from the mistakes and go again. And as fans, you don't really have much choice but to do that. Sport Republic aren't going anywhere. I mean, they're going to pick up a lot of flack, but they're not suddenly going to turn around and go, "Hey, we ain't good enough to do this." So yeah, it's it is very disappointing, and similar mistakes to the first time around have been made. And you just hope that with the new director of football that they start getting things going in the right direction and try and build something in the Championship that's a little bit more sustainable. But the relegation was kind of set in stone once the we've talked about this a lot. Once the summer transfer window closed, and you looked at the state of the squad that we had, and it's just like, well, there's not enough in midfield, there's not enough in attack. It's going to be very, very difficult to close the gap, and that's before we talk about one manager who was too stubborn to change his ways enough to sort of give us a fighting chance, and a manager who's come in who, I mean, to be fair, we were already down when Jurek came in, but he hasn't made a difference either, to be honest. You could argue he's made it worse. So, yeah, it's, I think 2 years ago, I wrote this big thing about tried to write every single thing that had gone wrong. And it was just so much. And this year it's been, different, but similar. There's been lots of decisions made that just haven't worked. And and I'm, be interesting to see what the atmosphere is like around the club and in the games. The 7 games we've got remaining. Now it's all over. I remember the odd game in the past where it's been, we've been relegated and and it's just going through the motions. But 7 games of it is quite a lot.
Yes, 4 Premier League games I think at home we've got to endure.
Good luck to the ticket office on that one.
Yeah, they'll be ringing around, won't they? Well, please come.
Why haven't you turned up today? Well, there you go.
What would you, as a fan, Steve, what would you like to see happen next? I'll be honest, we heard from Jack Stevens today. No surprise that he was put out to do all the media. Obviously, Jurich was saying all the usual things about how we have to learn from this and everybody needs to learn from the mistakes. And I don't know, we'd like to hear from the owners, do you think? Because obviously that's who everyone's going to be talking about and blaming. Do you think there's a statement from them to come, or do you think they do pull the trigger this week and that's it? We talked about this might be the point when they go, right, well, you're not our man for next season, so cheerio.
Well, I mean, in terms of the statement, I mean, we heard from them the moment it was done 2 years ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
But as we've alluded to, I think that season was a little bit more of a surprise than certainly than this season. I mean, I think start the season, I don't think anybody was under any illusions how difficult it was going to be. I don't think we all expect us to make such a complete pig's ear of it as we have done, but we are where we are, and ultimately the ownership has. They are the ones that have ultimately made the big decisions on this. They're, I mean, as we know, Darren Mowbray is already on his way, so. Head of recruitment is gone. Johannes Spoor is in for as in that sort of senior role, presumably in charge of recruitment. Whether there's somebody who kind of takes Mowbray's role as almost chief scout, if you like, I don't know yet, but we'll see on that. But it would be, I think, I would imagine that the fan base would expect to hear something from the ownership. I think otherwise you run the risk of them being seen. The impression that people will get will be that they're not listening, they're tone deaf, they don't care, which I'm sure all 3 of those things probably aren't true. But ultimately you have to be seen to be these things, and you have to be visible in times of crisis, and this is what we are now. And that's, I think that therefore kind of demands some kind of, whether it's a statement, whether it's a sit-down interview with Adam Blackmore throwing underarm questions to somebody in position. Who knows? It may well be that that we get something. Monday morning, perhaps. I mean, maybe one of them wants to come on Total Saints podcast and have a chat with all of us and see, and we can be
get dragging on,
we could be David Frost for an evening. See how that goes. But Yeah, I think there has to be something, probably in the next day or two, because otherwise, as I say, people are just going to say, well, they're just carrying on as if nothing's happened. Whereas we are, what, 6-7 weeks from the end of the season, and the season is basically over. It's decided for us. That's very unusual, and the unusual circumstances demand kind of an unusual, if you like, sort of response and sort of mea culpa, if you like.
But it does mean, Glenn, we have got more time than previously to plan. I know that they've already started making some changes, haven't they, behind the scenes. For me, I don't mind if the manager goes. I really wouldn't care less at all. Any of the players as well. You know, I'm really not that fussed about any of them. But whatever happens, to me, they need to have a plan. If you're going to sack the manager tomorrow, great. Wish him all the best. It didn't work out. Thanks for nothing. But they have to have a plan. They have to have something up their sleeve, and all the stuff with Sheffield Wednesday that's been going on this week. Now, those rumours are going to be about Danny Roll are going to be rife this week again.
Yeah, I mean that's the one good thing about it. Said this before. We came up in the playoffs. We had less time than anyone to get prepared, so that's one sort of small mitigating circumstance that we could say for this season. No such excuses this time. Now, you would hope that the first thing that Spurs or whoever can do is get hold of every single player and say, what are your intentions for next season? Now, it's never quite as simple as that because of agents and loyalty bonus payments and all this sort of rubbish. But, we need to know who wants to be around, because I think one of the things we should have learned from this year is that, you want players who are 100% committed. I mean, you always want that, but we've had last time we went down, we had players who stuck around who didn't necessarily want to stick around. We had players we wanted to get rid of that we couldn't, and all this sort of stuff. So, preparation needs to start now on players and whether they want to be around or not. We know that some are going to go. It's obvious which ones are going to go. There are a few that we would probably like to keep in the Championship because they're proven performers there. So you need to know whether those sort of players want to stick around. I mean, what you just said about don't really care who goes. There's a few I'd obviously like to keep. I mean, for example, I'd like to go into, if we went into the Championship next season and our midfield is Flynn Downs, Shoutouts and Mathias Fernandez, I'd be very confident about being able to build a proper team going forward with the likes of Ronnie Edwards, with an experienced player next to him, and even Alex McCarthy in goal. I sort of think that's halfway to the spine of a team that could be, good enough to mount a challenge. But there are lots of players like, I don't know, Cameron Archer, Adam Armstrong, Joe Rebo. Are these guys going to be around? And personally, I don't care if any of those, if they're here, great. They might be useful in the Championship. But if they're not, I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
No,
there's a number of them in that sort of boat. But I just hope they get they get things done as early as possible, and it would be good, as Steve was alluding to, with the we need a statement to make it look like we're doing something. I would. You'd love it if the transfer window opened and we've got deals either incoming or outgoing straight away, and we give ourselves as much time as possible and as best chance as possible to start in the Championship season properly. And of course, new manager announcement. Hopefully, we're not stuck with this one. Hopefully, that gets sorted fairly quickly as well.
Just reminds me of was it the January transfer window when Juric was said in the interview, we're going to sit down in a couple of weeks and we're going to talk about it. And like the window had been open for
just the lack of urgency was terrifying
staggering.
at that point.
That can't happen again, can it though? And some of that might have been lost in translation, but those things.
It's a bit like the team on the pitch. Like team on the pitch today. First half, no urgency, nothing, no tackles, no running, no intensity at either end of the pitch, just garbage. And that kind of is reflective of the whole club and the whole season and how it's gone.
I know you spotted the tweet as well today, didn't you? We confirmed our place in the Championship for next season, which I thought was
special.
the way they kind of worded that, like it was some sort of achievement. Did you also spot that they included the link to buy the pink kit? It's like, just read the room, guys. Read the room.
It looks so tin pot, doesn't it? I know ultimately it doesn't matter. It's a kit at the end of the day, but it just looks so. I can't be alone in thinking that just looks so tin pot. What is that about? Anyway, moving on.
I don't think you'll be getting one in the post. I want to get your thoughts on the game as well, Glenn. I mean, Tottenham has never been a particularly happy hunting ground for us, and of course, today proved no different. Change to 4 at the back for some reason. I guess. Well, I thought the match up with Spurs.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know what it was for. I agree with Steve. You know, we looked solid against Palace, and a lot of that was down to the work that Flynn Downs and Leslie Ugochukwu did in front of the back three. But Jack Stevens was part of that, and he played well. So I was a little bit surprised. I assume it was to match up with Spurs, or he thought that would be better against Spurs. And if so, you know, that's a manager's prerogative. Don't necessarily agree with it for this game. And you know, the first half was as bad as it gets. I mean, you know, there was just nothing there. I mean, it's obvious that the pre-game tactic was do nothing. Because that's exactly, they carried that out to the letter. You know, that first 10 minutes, just let Spurs have the ball, and we just like stood there and did nothing much. Then we had an attack, hit the post, and it was like nosebleeds. Oh, we've all got forward now. We won't get back, and they just broke up the side so easy, overlapping fullback, pulled it back, and 1-0, and it was terrible. I mean, we had the Romero, who's their sort of like main central defender. He was being picked up by Aribo on the set pieces. So no wonder he won every single header. You know, 2 hit Ramsdale in the face with 1, another good save with another. And then he heads one down. Bergvall scores. It's offside, but accidentally, nothing to do with anything we did. It's just luck that it's offside. And then, as Steve said, the second goal was just horrific. It was like watching 11-year-olds. I think all bar Walker-Peters out of the defence, just shocking. Manning and Bednarek looking round. Where's the ball? Harwood-Bellis blaming other people, and just useless. Guy's got to look at himself. He really has, because he was shocking. He was shocking, and Bednarek on that goal, dreadful as well. The second half, he made a slight change in that he pushed Aribo forward and put Fernandez further back, which meant we had midfielders who could run, and that helped. And what frustrated me about it is that Tottenham were poor, and if we'd have got our goal 10 minutes earlier, I'd have fancied us for a point, honestly, because they were terrible. The crowd was turning. Postecoglou just seemed to be getting angry on the side. No one seemed to be enjoying it for Spurs, even though they were
cupping his ear to anybody this time.
No, not this time. He was having a go at the 4th official and stuff like that. But again, we didn't really show the intensity up front. Again, I mean, even when I know Torpor was obviously injured, and you know was even less mobile than normal, we throw Ross Stewart on. I mean, it's nice to see him get on. To be honest, it's nice to see him standing up. And then we get a goal back, but we got a 6'3" guy and a 6'7" guy. Did we put any crosses in? No. You know, you can do that from 60 yards away. Just get the ball in the mix of this 3 minutes to go. And then another clown show at the back. And I don't know what on earth Wellington was doing, giving away that penalty. I mean, I question whether he actually touched him, but he turned around and appealed to the referee and looked so guilty. that referee was useless as well. Some of the inconsistencies on yellow cards. I mean, Ramsdale handles it outside the box deliberately, doesn't get booked. That was hilarious. Yeah, and then you've got Bergvall chops down Walker-Peters whilst he's breaking away up the pitch. Nowhere near the ball, totally deliberate, nothing. Ugochukwu, slight little tug of the shirt. It's the same foul. It's deliberate and it's stopping an attack. One's less dangerous than the other. I mean, book both of them or don't book either of them, for God's sake. It's just crazy. And Bergvall is an irritating player because he committed about 4 or 5 other fouls and a deliberate handball, nothing. So Michael Salisbury, not my favourite referee, but not the reason we lost that first half. You can't play like that in any game with that lack of commitment, lack of effort, lack of intensity, and expect to win the game.
We're a little bit lucky that it was only Spurs, really.
Yeah. Oh yeah, decent team. It reminded me a bit of the Nottingham Forest away game where we got absolutely buried in the first half and we made a game of it second half and only lost 3-2. It reminded me a little bit of that, but again, like that game, the first half was as bad as it gets, just pathetic, and that's down to the individual mindset of the players, and it's down to the manager and the way he sends the team out. What messages are you sending if you go out to start a game, big game in a big stadium, and you play like that? Just nothing, do nothing. It's just horrendous. So yeah, I think it's I agree with Steve. I think it's remarkable that people stayed, because half time I was really expecting the away end to be half empty, and it just goes to the mentality.
It sounded like a lot of people stayed in the concourse for a fair amount of that second half.
Yeah.
But I think they shut the bar midway through half time, because it was all getting a little bit boisterous down there, shall we say?
I think it just shows the mentality of the fans is a hell of a lot better than the mentality of the players.
Couple of standout performances, though, Steve. I thought Kyle Walker-Peters had another good game, and Ramsdale making a few saves too. And obviously, as Glen was kind of alluding to earlier, Fernandes. It really would be a shame if he was to leave in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, three of four of the five that we know are likely to be on their way, kind of put themselves in the shop window quite nicely, didn't they? As you say, Ramsdale, Walker-Peters, and Fernandes all had good games. Dibbling's game, I can't work out whether that was a half decent performance from him or not. It was bizarre. I don't know whether kind of what my eyes are telling me was that he was kind of involved a fair amount, and ultimately they were doubling or trebling up on him at times. So ultimately it was he was limited in terms of what he could realistically be expected to do. But then I've also got like everything in my ears from all the people that were stood sort of 3, 4, 5 rows behind me, just constantly having a pop at him. And it's very difficult to kind of mesh the two together and kind of work it out, really. I kind of think that he didn't really get involved as much as he might have done. When he did, everything was a little bit slow. He wasn't like, if you remember back to his full debut against Man United, where he turned Diogo Dalot's blood inside out.
Yeah.
There was none of that. There was none of those sort of quick half turns where you get away from the fullback and you leave him for dead. All of the dribbling was slow. The build-up was slow. Walker-Peters was trying to offer overlaps most of the time, and the ball rarely went. When the ball did get laid off, there was no subsequent run to try and get into space. I don't know whether that's just because obviously it's been a discussion point over the last month or so, is Tyler Dibbling trying? Genuinely, people have been saying that, and you look at it and you think, especially with, obviously we've discussed like his running style and the way he stands and sort of naturally slopey shoulders. And you can see why people think that when you kind of see the output, which is limited at best at the moment, frankly. But at the same time, you then see him chase back 30, 40 yards and win the ball back a couple of times. So I don't think there is a kind of black and white answer on it. And it's just so immensely frustrating that here is a lad who could be genuinely putting himself in the shop window and that could affect how much money we all expect him to go in the summer, but his performances between now and the end of the season could determine the sort of price that we're able to put on him. I mean, the 100 million thing is obviously nonsense. That's obviously just a thing with a view to trying to scare everybody off. But realistically, if someone puts 40 to 50 million on the table, then we'll be taking it, I would have thought. And unfortunately, at the moment, it's now looking certainly more towards the lower end of that, maybe down towards 30, because teams will look at it and say, well, I mean, what's his output been second half of the season?
What's he done? Yeah.
Yeah.
He does come into a lot of criticism, doesn't he, Glenn? And I know that this is one of the biggest sort of talking points after each game on social media. People always either back him or get on his case, and we've talked about it on recent pods. But we just don't know what he's being asked to do either when he comes on. That's the other point.
No, I mean, I actually thought he was okay today. He really wanted the ball, which is always the first thing, because if you're not having it and you're not enjoying yourself, you don't want the ball and you don't show for the ball. You just go and hide. And he wasn't doing that. He was wanting the ball. I agree with Steve. Everything seemed to be a little bit slow. There was a couple of times where Walker Peters was outside him screaming for the pass, and he was kind of, I'm going to work it back into the midfield. I mean, I thought, again, like last week, I thought the problems were elsewhere. You know, I thought and you got to look at more experienced players. I think, you know, I keep mentioning him. Joe Aribo's shocking. Cameron Archer's shocking. You know, and those are the players who need to do more. But yeah, back to Tyler. I thought he was okay. I think clubs, if you're talking about him being transferred, I think clubs know they're buying potential there, and they've seen him do things that, in the context of being a very young player in a very poor team, you know, clubs will be looking at him to think, well, what could he do in our team? Maybe Spurs are not the best example to look at.
They're the ones that have been most heavily linked.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, clubs should be looking at players. You know, what could they do in our team? And the same applies to someone like Taylor Harwood-Bellis, who I thought was shocking today, and he's had a few shocking games. But if you, for argument's sake, put him in Newcastle's team with a better structure in front of him, you know, would he be better? And that's the way teams have got to think about it when they're looking at signing players from clubs who are ultimately going to get relegated. There's a reason why a lot of relegated players move on, and it's not just that the relegated team desperately needs the money. You know, the Premier League sides, established Premier League sides, especially ones near the top end, you know, they don't want to sign players just for the sake of signing them, and they got to at least have some sort of thought that this player is going to be useful for them. And obviously that's, you know, you look at Man United, for example, and you could argue the complete opposite. But no, I mean, you know, we will obviously need to sell some players to get money. And if we're going to sell Tyler Dibbling, we would obviously rather get 50 million for him than 40 million. But I am hopeful with him that we're not going to get lowballed, because I think there'll be more than one club interested. You know, I mean, I've seen the likes of Villa, Newcastle are always seem to be sniffing around. You've got Spurs. I've even seen Manchester United linked. So how much of it is true, only time will tell. But I thought today was a step in the right direction. I thought it was a better performance today than he's put in the last few weeks, and I was encouraged by the fact that he did continually want the ball.
It's just a shame we're not going to see his full potential, isn't it? I mean, we've had players, and I'm sort of casting my mind back a while now, but when young players have left, they've been chipping in with the goals or the free kicks and stuff, and you're genuinely like, if they leave, it's going to leave a massive hole in the team, and he isn't. It's that potential that we're not going to get to see, and I think that's kind of the sad thing.
Well, it's been the same. I mean, Gareth Bale, classic. You know, one season we had him at left back, and then he moved to Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, another one, who, you know, half a season and then he left. Going back further, Theo Walcott. You know, that it's happened quite a lot. I mean, personally, I think it would be better for Tyler's career to have a season in the Championship, but we all know that's very, very unlikely to happen, given the contract situation and the amount of money that is going to be offered with any move to a Premier League club. It's going to be a hell of a lot more than he's on at the moment. And I know he got homesick the first time and came back, but there's a big difference between being 17 and being 19. So I think he'd be more inclined to be able to handle it now, and the pressures that will come with, you know, playing for a Premier League club and having a big transfer fee around your neck.
Before we move on, it's been a while since we did a Player of the Week vote. I kind of feel like there might be a couple if you take into account the midweek game as well at Palace. There was a kind of sort of half decent performance across the two games. Anybody that stands out for you, Steve, from Wednesday or today for Player of the Week? I know we've mentioned a few names, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, Flynn Downs for me was excellent on Wednesday, and his absence today kind of as ever, players
Exactly
get better
that.
when they're not in the team, don't they? For us, that is kind of the way it seems to work for us now, is that any player that shows a vague bit of competence and then spends some time out of the team suddenly is really sorely missed, even though large parts of the season we kind of haven't really missed him. But yeah, Flynn Downs for me was, as I say, was excellent against Palace. It was exactly what we needed from him and Ugachukwu in that midfield, because that's a part of the pitch where Palace are really strong usually. And yeah, we were able to dominate them in that centre of midfield. So yeah, for me, Downs would be the pick of the bunch over the two games.
I think I put Carl Walker-Peters on the list as well, maybe.
Yeah,
Glenn, anyone else?
Matheus Fernandes.
Yes, of course.
He keeps his performance levels at a decent level. He hasn't dropped off all season. He's a youngster playing in the Premier League, playing in a foreign country for the first time for a terrible team, and his standards have not really slipped all season. He's been very, very consistent all the way through in a terrible team. So, and I thought today he was, he was definitely one of our best players today. Deserved his goal at the end.
Yeah.
He was decent against Palace.
It's going to be an interesting toss-up for Player of the Year, isn't it? Between him or
Ramsdale,
Fernandes and Ramsdale.
Yeah. And I thought Ramsdale was good today, and he made one fantastic save against Palace when Mateta hit that one on the turn, sort of like through two pairs of legs, I think, and he saved that one, but slight question mark on the goal at Palace. He made some good saves today as well. So if anything else, I'd go for Ramsdale and
we'll chuck him in as well. Why not? Another relegation for Ramsdale as well, wasn't it? As everyone's quick to point out today. Yeah. Poor guy. Anything else on Spurs before we move on to Villa?
No, not really. I mean, they had their big protest march before the game, didn't they? Which was from the pub I was in, about half a mile away, sounded pretty loud. I imagine there were probably quite a lot of people in attendance for that. And yeah, they seem to reserve most of their noise for that protest rather than the game. I mean, there wasn't anything riding on the game really for either side, was there? So it was one of those typical games where you go to a big ground and it's just a bit too easy for the home side, and therefore there's basically no atmosphere whatsoever. So yeah, that was fairly disappointing, but unsurprising, I think.
Well, there's 4 Premier League home games left to, as I said earlier, enjoy/endure. It's Aston Villa on Saturday. I had to check back, Glenn. It was 1-0 back in December. Joe Lumley was in goal. I was expecting. I've forgotten about the game. When I look back, I was thinking, oh, it would have been like 3 or 4-0, but maybe it wasn't. Wasn't as bad back then. But I was looking at this one, thinking maybe it's a chance for Villa to rest a few players on Saturday.
Well, it comes in between their 2 games against PSG in the Champions League quarter-final, doesn't it? So they got one on Wednesday, then they're playing us, and then they're playing PSG.
They should put the under-18s now, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought Villa had a ridiculously good squad at the start of the season, and then in the January window,
January business was extraordinary, wasn't it?
They signed Donny O'Marlin, Rashford, and Asensio. That's 3 top-level players, really. To come into an already strong squad. So if you look at their team from the last game, they beat Forest yesterday, was it, or the day before?
Yeah.
They on their bench they had Matty Cash, Luca Dean, Pau Torres, Ezri Konsa, John McGinn, Jacob Ramsey, and Marcus Rashford were all on the bench.
Fair,
so the first team, the players there: Martinez in goal, Watkins, Rogers, Onana, Tielemans. they've got a really good squad of players. So I don't think they could rest 8 or 9 against us, and they'd still have a very, very strong Premier League team, even if they put all those substitutes in it. And it will certainly be enough to beat us, you would have thought. Now, they will want to win, obviously, because they'll want to qualify for the Champions League again next year, because obviously they're, even though they're in the quarterfinals, they're playing PSG, they're unlikely, to qualify through that route. So they're going to want to go for the top 4, and that 4th place is pretty wide open. There's a number of teams that could sneak in there.
5th is likely to do it now.
Yeah, so they're one of them. So they're not going to want to turn up and not care about this game. So it does. For our sakes, it does worry me a little bit. Obviously, you don't know what we're going to do. I mean, are we going to look at next season? In which case, is it worth the likes of Leslie Ugochukwu playing? Because he's obviously on loan. I personally think he should play, obviously, especially with McDowell's not there. But is there going to be anything that maybe certain players who are going to move, maybe they just won't want to play? So maybe there will be a few left field selections from us because we're already relegated. I hope not. I would hope that everyone, feels like they owe it to the supporters who turn up to at least make themselves available and give it a go. But what it's like sometimes when players reach the end of contracts, end of the season, and all that sort of stuff. Ryan Fraser, cough. So I'm not terribly hopeful. Like I'm not terribly hopeful for any game going into this. And if Villa, Unai Emery seems to be doing a fantastic job, and the club as a whole, they definitely seem to be backing the manager, as evidenced by the players they brought in January to an already strong squad. So they obviously really want to make a go of it this season, and I don't see us making too much of a dent in their ambitions, to be honest.
No, they're certainly flying at the moment, aren't they, Steve? As we've said, 6th in the league, and obviously those Champions League games as well. It's not really a surprise either, is it?
Not hugely, no. I mean, obviously they were good last season, and they've strengthened throughout this season over the 2 transfer windows. Obviously, with a little bit of PSR jiggery pokery with their friends at Chelsea in June last summer. And
good point.
Yeah, but they've obviously they sold John Duran, didn't they, to Saudi Arabia in January, which brought in a lot of money, which basically means they're probably not going to have to do anything a little bit shady this time. So that aligned with obviously top 5 finish, the money that comes from that Champions League. They'll probably be getting 40-50 million quid out of their Champions League run, you would imagine. All that money helps on the on balancing the books and keeping things above board. And you look at as you say, you look at those players they brought in January. Admittedly, Rashford and Asensio are only on loan. But you could certainly see that Rashford signing becoming permanent. Seems to have had a new lease of life where he's not quite under the utterly ludicrous spotlight that he was under at Man United. I mean, there's 30 players that you could hound for their performances and effort at Old Trafford, and he would have been a lot further down the list in my book. But yeah, they're a strong squad. Manager who in league terms has never really quite done it, but when it comes to knockout football, is just an absolutely extraordinary manager in terms of being able to prepare players for specific opposition in that knockout format, whether it's over 1 or 2 legs. And so I personally think Villa are probably favourites for the FA Cup.
Okay.
If you think that City are looking ropey as hell, I mean, that Manchester derby today sounded like a worse game of football than ours, which says something. So City are looking a little bit ropey. Obviously, no Haaland for the rest of the season. So they're there to be got at. I think if it's a Villa City final, I would be backing Villa all the way on that, I think. But I think they're, if there's one weak spot, it's defence. Centre of defence, they've rotated quite a lot over the season, which I think is understandable, obviously, given the extra games they've had to deal with. But I think that has also brought out a little bit of the sort of old maverick stuff we used to see from Emi Martinez before he got the Golden Glove in the World Cup and decided to do what he did with the trophy. And so you've seen a few goals where you kind of think might have done a bit better there. So I think the trick with Villa is to take shots and take shots frequently. Kind of doesn't matter where you are really, because Martinez, I think, is I kind of rank him and Ramsdale as very similar style goalkeepers in that they're both very sort of happy to sort of get involved in a little bit of housery, a little bit of sort of winding people up, plenty of time wasting, but also they have these little moments where they just blank off and lose concentration. And so I think keep him on his toes by keeping him busy. I mean, I know that's easier said than done for our attack, but Villa are going to come to St Mary's and they will come to play. They're not going to sit deep and try and play on the counter, even though they're very good at doing that. I mean, look at the speed that they've got. You see the opening goal that Rashford scored midweek at Brighton, where he just went from back to front and he's just run past everybody. Like it was like watching sort of Roadrunner running past. I mean, Lewis Dunk trying to keep pace with Marcus Rashford was a sight to be seen. So they won't necessarily set up to play on the counter attack. They will look to force the game because at the end of the day they're sixth in the table. They're in the last 16s at the Champions League, and therefore you are kind of a good team in your own right, and therefore they will say, right, we're going to impose our game. So they'll be on the front foot. But that does mean that will leave space for us. They will rely on their own players to be good enough to not let our better players do anything useful. But I mean, who knows? I mean, now the pressure's off. It goes one of two ways. Either we suddenly start playing because the pressure's off, or we're even worse.
And what would you like to see? Because Glen was saying, like, there might be a chance to see some of the players that are going to be sticking around next year, maybe less of those that aren't. What would you be happy seeing for these last, was it 7 games?
I mean, frankly, given that we've got 10 points from theoretically putting our best 11 out every week, if we put anything less than our best 11 out every week, then we're going to get even more stuffed. So, no, I'd be sticking with play your best players, please, Ivan.
Yeah. Anything else on Villa? We did the score predictions, of course. If you're watching live, put your score prediction in the comments. Must just say, because he picked me up on it otherwise, Alfie got 3 points this week. So well done. 3 of our patrons as well in the Patreon League also correctly got the Spurs score right. Glen, would you like to go first with your Villa prediction?
It's going to be another. I was still predicting us to win against Spurs, didn't he? I'm not. We're not going to go down that road. I'm not expecting the pressure being off to make a huge amount of difference because the pressure's been off since October and we've still been shit for ever since, really. So I'm not expecting much from us. I'd be. Yeah, we do. I think hopefully with. Hopefully Amo-Ameyaw will be fit, which will at least give us some sort of attack to cause them at least a few problems. But I'll go for a 3-1 Villa win.
See, I was going to go 3-0, and then Steve said about having shots from distance, and you've got a chance. So then I changed that to 3-1. But now I'm thinking I don't want to have the same as you, so I'm going to go 4-1 to Villa. I think something might click for them. Steve?
I think it might play out quite similar to today's game, really, in terms of I think Villa will start fast. They'll basically have a view of get the game won, and then we can manage players' minutes as we go. So I suspect they may kind of race into a 2-0 at half time, and then just be quite happy to to play it out, and ultimately the St Mary's crowd will get a bit disgruntled, and it'll all get a bit tedious in the second half. So 2-0 Villa.
Do you think there'll be empty seats again, Steve, on Saturday?
Well, mine will be. Unfortunately, I'm away on the stag do. So
hey, can we all come? Sounds more interesting.
I think the other thing to remember,
Cracovia play instead.
Yeah, we're. I mean, Flynn Downs is obviously not going to be there, so we're still going to have that issue in midfield. And I think after today, it's worth mentioning. I think Will Smallbone will start. I actually think he did okay when he came on as sub, even though it was a slightly fractured, strange end to the game. He certainly, I mean, he certainly put a lot more in than Aribo did. So I can imagine that he will start alongside Leslie, but that's still going to, it's still good. We're still going to have problems in the midfield area. And Villa are pretty strong in there with Amadou Onana, who is huge and a proper athlete. So it'll be interesting to see how we deal with him. But I think with the players we've got available, I think we are going to struggle.
Deep joy. Anything else tonight? I think we've covered quite a bit, haven't we, with the games?
Nothing else.
I just can't wait for it. Can't wait for it to be over. As I said, get past the derby 11 points thing, so people can stop talking about that and just forget we exist to the end of the season, and then let's move on. And look forward maybe to the photograph of the corner flag or the front of the ground, whatever we tend to do. And as Steve said, I think it's important to get some sort of statement from the from someone in the corridors of power, just to let everyone know what's going on.
Well, maybe that will come. And maybe if the manager does go, then we'll do an emergency pod this week. Whatever happens, don't forget you can follow us on all the social media channels. It's at Total Saints Pod. And you can check out the New Look website as well. There's a link on there to the merch store. Head to totalsaints.co.uk for all of that. As I mentioned earlier, you'll also find us on Patreon. That's where you can support the podcast with your monthly contributions. Thank you to those that do. Head to patreon.com/Total Saints Pod. Each of the tiers comes with different perks, including some shouts for the patrons in our Francis Benali and our Mick Shannon tiers. We do those at the end of every podcast. So thanks as always to Dave Melton, Andy Hollis, Anthony Thompson, Gavin Ford, James Harron, Nicky Nicholson, Southampton NY, Drew Dyer and James Kibbe. They're in our Francis Benali tier. And also a huge thank you to Colt Baker, Dave Ernsberger, Nick Hingston, Phil Cook, Nick Reed, Phil Horstrup, Matt Hall, Mark Littlewood, Mike Etheridge, James Bobin, John Bevan and Liam Dempsey, who are in our Mick Shannon tier. Thanks as well to Paul Castle Associates and Steamtown Brewery for sponsoring TSP this season. Thanks to Glenn and to Steve. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will see you again next weekend.